Let's meet Mr. Immanuel Koh, Assistant Professor at Singapore University of Technology and Design and the 2024 BLT Build Design Award winner for his project AI Sampling Singapore. Today he is exploring innovative ways to harness AI for effective town planning and urban design, pushing the boundaries of how technology can shape our cities of the future. So welcome Emmanuel. How AI is shaping architecture sampling.
So, Manuel, thank you so much for talking to AC Update magazine. We are from India, and we were listening to your presentation and conversation about how AI can be useful tool for architecture. Can you please detail about AI sampling, what you shared?
Right. So just now at the presentation, I was showing the AI Sampling Singapore project, and it's really about using existing data set from public housing design and use that as a basis to train a model, an AI model, to then generate plausible regulation and compliance forms in terms of the exterior form, but also the interior configuration planning. So in relation to town planning or city planning, I think the same approach might potentially be adopted as well. So instead of looking at historical data set of good buildings, you could look at town planning that been done previously. On the one hand, you could begin to visualize and explore what are the good practices and bad practices, and at the same time using that model to generate favorable design also. You can also combine, I suppose, which is not quite in this project I presented. We call it neuro-symbolic approach, where you combine rule-based systems with deep learning models. And in the case of city planning, urban planning, which is far more complex, I think such an approach might be more appropriate also.
Yeah. So, and you were sharing about the study what you did from Singapore City.
Yeah.
Right. So, can you share a little more about what was the process you adopted and what kind of findings you could able to conclude?
Right. So we conducted an earlier historical understanding of the morphologies of high-rise, high-density buildings in Singapore from the 1927, which is really the beginning of, or the precursor of HDB. They call it the Singapore Improvement Trust. And throughout this almost 100 years, even before the independence of the nation, there have been programs and projects that try to address public housing shortage. And this has been a kind of a consistent effort. And so the study was really to have a real local understanding of the state of things before one begin to use AI models to generate design, because these design have to be evaluated somehow, right? Whether historically, programmatically, architecturally.
And how it will be beneficial for the town planning or beneficial for the architecture community?
Well, as I mentioned just now, it will be useful at least in the earlier analysis part, where one could very quickly kind of visualize, understand, analyze patterns within the urban fabric, within urban planning. Are there lessons to be learned? Are there similar ways of designing in the past for different localities? And also potentially transferring from what you learn from one region to the other, but of course with a critical mind.
Yeah. So the model what you develop, is there any space to integrate behavioral aspects as well?
Yes, we could actually include that, but it will be at a very different scale. On the one hand, we can imagine it as from the non-resident, meaning the perception of the buildings in the urban context from the outside at the street level. But another project might be with the residents, where we try to understand, even track their experiences with a specified time frame, for instance. And from there, we could begin to analyze the changes that might be brought about by these new designs.
So what you say is, in this process, human involvement will be inevitable.
Yes, human involvement is definitely necessary, because on the one hand, just to curate the data set, on the one hand, the other hand is to actually train the model to choose the right appropriate models, AI models, and then also post-process the output, because it's not so straightforward. It's not a completely end-to-end process. There's always a human in the loop in the selection and the generation.
And when we keep updating the attributes, whatever the attributes required, especially availability of space, for example, cities like Mumbai, we always have space as a major challenge for architects or for developers. So how these kind of models will be useful from that perspective?
I mean, if it's from a developer perspective, if it's from a more like a profit-driven perspective, obviously you can do all the calculations very quickly in an automatic sense. But at the same time, having a way to assess these profitable development, which may not necessarily be favorable for the future end user, right? So we can actually incorporate that in the overall evaluation system.
What kind of time you invested for this study?
This project actually started much earlier, in actually 2021, and it was actually first exhibited at the Venice Architecture Biennale in 2021 under the CDX section. And currently we're working on much higher granularity, meaning looking at even the walls and column distribution within a single unit, apartment units. And so it's kind of a high multi-scalar approach.
And what kind of team is working behind this project?
So we have a research team so I'm an academic as well. So we have a research team that looks at different neural networks, deep neural networks models that would be suitable, also strategically adaptable for architecture and urban design. So we have a number of projects. We currently actually have a research project with MVRDV in Rotterdam. We also have an ongoing project with Zaha the Architects in London, mainly looking at, which is a bit different from this project, mainly looking at multimodal AI, where we try to explore different modalities, meaning different modes of representation of design, and use that as a way to inform these practices. But it's a very much work in progress. So yeah.
So like what you said about the study, what you did, you started in 2021, and by 2024 it's almost a usable space, right, in a stage.
So this project was actually completed around, we showed it in 2021. It's sort of further exhibited in different places, but we actually move on to a different aspect of the problem, which is, as mentioned, at a much smaller scale, higher granularity, because in this project we're not even addressing the facade nor the circulation in a really or even feasibility studies in an exact sense. So that was a start, but we have moved on into different smaller projects that try to address these missing parts.
Yeah. If anyone is interested to reach out to you, how they can connect you?
You can just write to me. I'm an assistant professor at the Singapore University of Technology and Design. So you can just Google my name, Immanuel Koh, SUTD. You should be able to find me.